Nobody's come forward as an official candidate yet that we know of for the Ontario Regional Chief.
I think there was one from the Nan territory.
We have Alvin Fiddler for AFN Chief. We're also replacing the Ontario Regional Chief. So Alvin Fiddler from NAN. We're beating ourselves up because Roseanne Archibald is also running for AFN, so they're losing big votes from Ontario, which is by 2 candidates from Ontario.
Right.
And then they have Jody Califu Stonehouse from Michelle Reserve north of Edmonton. She's running for national chief. So those are the candidates that we know of right now. There's 3 for national. We don't have any confirmed for Ontario. And I think the deadline is May 26th, I think. That's
Yeah, the other note I have here, if you recall, Dr. Martin.
oh, sorry, Dr. Kathy Martin is running, yeah.
She has asked that I signed one of the 15, she needs 15 chiefs from outside of her region to support her candidacy. And she has asked me to sign as one of those chiefs. Being in Ontario, she's out on the East Coast from New Brunswick, I believe it is.
She's from
Quebec. Okay.
Martin. She's a big one. She's either Brunswick for, you remember whether it's Essassoni or Restigouche, one of those 2 is Restigouche.
She's on the East Coast or something. Yeah. So I guess I pose a question to the council. Will you allow me to be one of those 15 chiefs, and at the same time, by doing this, will we turn around and support another candidate at the national level?
Are you going to vote for that person? Because I think that's what happens when they endorse someone.
That's right.
Did we get her speech first?
But she does have a motion on her platform as well.
I'm upset with her because she left us.
That's 1 nay,
Another nay.
2 nays,
Another day.
3. That's enough for me. Okay, I'm gonna respectfully decline the offer to be one of those supporting chiefs. That I will support a Ontario chief who is undisclosed at this point in time. I guess it's, I guess when there's a candidate, potential candidate from Ontario, usually the chiefs within Ontario support that candidate.
Chief won't show.
Maybe not. Maybe not all of them. Okay, moving on. Discussion on solidarity, or is it June 21st?
Is that the solstice?
Yeah, solstice.
Is that the same date? Solidarity Day and everything else? June 21st, is it? Elaine?
I was asked by community members to put this on the agenda ahead of time so that they could at least have fireworks, but I wish Neva was here because she put out a post for a whole bunch of things that happened on that day, but she was hoping that we wouldn't be under lockdown, but I don't know whether we will, but I think that fireworks would be safe if people could just stay in their cars, and there's so many mosquitoes usually that they do anyway, stay in their cars. But-
Stuff that's legit.
Yeah,
They're still running around and terrorizing.
they don't care about mosquitoes.
Don't care about mosquitoes.
Should we just call it COVID Fest instead?
COVID Fest, all right.
They usually have a budget, but I don't know what it was. James would know. What is a budget for solstice? We didn't have it last year, so we must have saved some money.
Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
Otherwise, we've got twice as much.
Bigger fireworks.
My essay, yeah. Maybe they're fireworks or recording.
How much is the fireworks approximately?
sorry, I don't know.
Oh, there's somebody who knows,
I believe we have the old invoice at the office, and I think it's around 5,000. Usually around 5,000.
5,000.
Yeah.
We'll double it.
Couple of-
Just for the fireworks.
I think we can go with the fireworks, I guess.
We had the candy, or hot dogs or something.
Well, then we'd be outside of the COVID restrictions.
We handed out candy for Halloween during the COVID lockdown.
Yeah, that worked out fairly well.
We had a drive-through.
We could do something like that.
We can do a drive-through barbecue handout or something.
Hot dogs?
Yeah.
I can definitely look into that.
And it keeps a tradition, maybe a drive-through dance competition. We had the 60 apart, and have a couple of drummers, they go different times. They're within their group, right? They're not sharing the same drum or the drumsticks.
Is it June 2nd where the phase 1 starts? So I would imagine we usually follow that. So I feel like we can have the ability to do something just to show, I don't even know what it shows, but just to give people some happiness and something to look forward to. Like I was saying outside, that I'm all for staying home and being as safe as possible, but it's even getting to me now. And like, I think we just, we can do it as safely as possible, follow every single protocol and ensure and let everybody in the community know that we want to do this. As long as we're doing it right, then why can't we do it?
Okay, I'll propose a motion that we set a budget of 7,500 to undertake the 10. From Ron, 10,000. Another suggestion over there, go ahead.
Well, it's around 5,000 for fireworks, and I'm gonna say probably 1,500 for food. 2,000.
10 would be comfortable.
10's good, we'll give you up to 12 if you need 12.
10 is bacon cheeseburgers instead of hot dogs?
Oh,
Steaks for the cooks.
$10,000 then for the June 21st celebration then. Moved by,
I'll move it.
moved by Elaine, second by Ron. All those in favor?
That's no fun.
Carried.
We should identify a budget for this to come out of, if it's not coming out of casino random. It can come out of a hosting agreement or.
From the CEO.
From the CEO's travel budget.
Save money.
Recreation dollars, we used to every year. Recreation dollars. That used to come,
We're gonna use those then.
we're gonna use those?
Yeah. Full-blown summer program.
Oh, awesome.
Yay.
Is there any money for any of the hosting agreements?
Yeah.
Use one of those.
Hosting agreements.
Well, Charge has informed me that we're gonna get some money anyway, so we might as well utilize some of it from Wind Farm.
Everybody,
Okay.
everybody's gonna benefit. Everybody's gonna smile.
There's a lot of hot air going around.
Okay, we'll get it from a hosting agreement. Agreed? Carried. Update on the, we had initial discussion on the, go ahead.
I'm not sure what the code rules are about, I was planning on having a community ball tournament that day for Solidarity Day. But I'm not sure about the gatherings and how many people we can have, but Tyler said everybody's, being able to go to the calls and something up at the ball diamond. Could we add another, some of that money to go towards that, finish that ball? I already got the trophy and everything ready to go, but, and Kyla had already given me permission to have practices. So are we a step away from having a 6 or 18 tournament up there, all strictly Wapoo? Nobody else, just Wapoo people.
Yes, tentatively.
Had it up there for Solidarity Day, one day when the Blue Jays came down, we had it.
We'll include that in the Solidarity Day celebrations, Solidarity Day ball tournament.
Yeah, that'd be a good place to get our hot dogs.
Yep. I know the hot dogs there. It's gonna be pretty rough at night when mosquitoes are flying.
Feed them and let them go watch fireworks.
Yeah,
There you go.
Baseball.
you can even put the sectionals done bleachers, so they're sitting 6 feet apart or something like that.
Now for the parade.
Well, yeah, we can work on a plan for a ball tournament. Some of the things we're more worried about with events like that is what are the chances people are gonna get together at home afterwards and that sort of thing. So we're just thinking about that, but, you know.
I think they're already staying to their own groups right now,
Yeah.
so you want to advise that.
Regardless, we're gonna do it anyways.
Okay.
People are tired of being home.
Yeah.
Can you put a small coordinating group together to take care of these activities?
You need a motion to add that up?
Lisa, you'll help James with that?
Yeah.
Larissa?
Yes.
There we go.
Thank you.
And any available counselor.
Okay.
Okay, I've had a request for a member to fly the pride flag, recognition of those individuals. I don't have any problems with that. Got a question?
So they want it flown on our staff?
On our staff, yeah.
Okay. And right now, it's just the Saskatchewan flag, so it would go right under the flag?
Well, we were flying that red flag there for a
Yeah.
while. And,
Should be fine.
the skull and crossbones for a while. So, no problem.
Put a warrior flag under there?
We put that there too, yeah. Once we have one, we're not gonna sail the Mohawk, you know?
Thank you.
Thank you. I make a motion for James to come up with a policy in that regard, so these kinds of things are coming back to council day every time. We get a policy in place, everybody knows what's,
For flags?
yeah, for the flags.
Work on the flag policy, will you?
Flag policy.
My goodness sakes. Flag policy. Second by Val. It's been moved by Marcia, second by Val, that we institute a flag policy, and the request be vetted through that process.
Yes.
All those in favor? Carried.
I'm opposed. I want to note it because we're becoming colonialized, like, we fly our own flags and our own colors all our lives, this Anishinaabe, and we're gonna become a policy, so I have a problem with it.
It's noted for the record then. Update on the commercial fishing. We had an initial meeting with the officials. It was just a general discussion on who the individuals are, I guess, on either side. And I'm in the process of putting together a position paper. Once that is put together, I will circulate that for council information. And that's it for me. Mover and seconder for the chief's report. Moved by Ron, second by Keenan. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the screen here. Chief Executive?
Yes. So I've asked Russ to put his request in a briefing note. Basically, what the school has been doing in the absence of in-person instruction is some one-on-one activities to help compensate, for some of the needs that some students have in the special needs area, but also to make sure that learning is available and tutoring for children that have less access to internet at home. And there have been some requests through missed appointments and things like that with some frustrated parents that weren't able to connect their child to the teacher. And one of the things they're proposing is to have teachers in the classroom, which would help them be more consistent with the online learning. Most of them are very committed to that. Some of them, there might be an improved service if they were in the classroom, but we are cognizant of what it might look like to have a parking lot full of vehicles when we're in lockdown. So our recommendation is to go ahead with having teachers present in the school. We just want to run that by council, since there will be the perception, why are those cars in the parking lot when you don't have in-person learning? We're still holding off on that, but we're already doing some one-on-one activities, and this would help us do that better.
Continue on.
So the recommendation is to allow teachers to come into to work in the school, bring them back full-time.
Lee?
I think it's all academic staff, is it not? Not just teachers?
Yep.
Is he saying how many, like, at a time, or?
We'd probably be looking at around 50% capacity at any given time. And we're close to that anyway, but we just want to make sure there's comfort at the council level as we see more vehicles there. But we do feel that they're spaced far enough apart. It's generally 1 or 2 per classroom, and they're using PPE, so it's fairly low risk.
Will they continue to give out the breakfast or lunch programs?
Yeah.
And the protocols are checking their temperatures and stuff, those are all gonna be in play, right?
Yes,
And
they've
the
been.
teachers that are assigned classrooms are the only ones in those classrooms unless the child and the parent come in?
Correct.
Okay. And is there gonna be a number? How many are gonna be allowed in the classroom with that teacher, or is?
It's just one-on-one at this point.
Okay.
Has there been any discussion on the balance of the school year?
We have discussed that, and the school still feels like if there's an opportunity to reopen, even if it's just for 2 or 3 weeks, it would still be worth it to try to make sure we give them the best academic experience we can for this year. So that's where the staff are leaning.
A related question to that is, how does this impact or not impact, I guess, their concept of a balanced school year? Does it matter at all? Is it relevant? Is there some flexibility there to provide instruction through the summer, or?
There is that possibility, and we are still, the plan is still to bring teachers back and have summer instruction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll explore that? Cody?
Yeah, seems like every time we have a request or anything from the principal there, we have a director there, it'd be ideal to have him come in once in a while. We have questions that we can ask him. And, I feel that he's always passing the buck over to you, James, and getting you to present this for him regardless. It'd be ideal to touch base with them in this room. Are they like questions like, what types of health and safety issues is he gonna uphold? Like what types of stuff's going on there? Are these teachers traveling all over the place? Are they been taken care of? Have they been vaccinated? All this other stuff. So we got a lot of questions that we want him to answer. This is like the second, presentation here. I wish I had the employees to answer some questions. Which,
I would have had the director present this, but he was off.
of course,
So, yeah.
I wish I was watching a hockey game.
Isn't he just interim?
He's interested.
Just till the first period.
Good. Lee,
Have we dealt with the cafeteria situation over there? I had a visitor a couple days ago, and he's right at the edge, he's at the limit of,
we'll have to discuss that in camera.
But I can quickly add that we have had the interim director look into it, and the health center was involved as well, so I'll have an update.
Anything further in your report?
No.
Okay. Mover and seconder to accept the chief executive.
Oh, sorry, there is more in my report, so
Oh, okay.
I just, sorry, I thought just that briefing note.
Almost out.
Do we need a motion for that? No.
Probably the whole
Go ahead.
report.
Oh, yeah, the report.
Okay. 7.3, there's a draft committee terms of reference. And Lucille worked on this with some input from me. Basically, we're reiterating that this is an interim measure given the current COVID restrictions. And we want to make sure we're providing both staff that are experts or managers in the areas of the committee, and we'll be assigning one administrative staff person for each committee to deal with minutes, agendas, and to coordinate the meetings. So we're bringing this to you for your consideration. It's basically a recap of what we decided on for the committees, and we should be in shape to start regular meetings shortly.
Anytime.
so no, community members can join that committee right now?
That was the direction from council, is that these are committees of council for now.
That's, we're still under the Indian Act, so, we have to engage with our community members. If we're doing this, this is a form of, a different government. We could all be investigated for that. We have to engage with our community members regardless. We cannot be dictating our programs. We need that input, just like the March Committee. We had valuable information coming from elder hunters, youth. We all need those voices. They mold our decisions. To take them out of that is, you know, we might as well go live in Walsburg and start parading the Canadian flag around all over the place. This is under the Indian Act. We have to engage with our community members, and I think that needs to be put in here. I'm against this idea right now of having an intern committee with, you know, without the say of our community members. We got construction workers, carpenters that have valuable information and input. They can rely on housing committees and stuff like that. We need those ideas, and that's why we are where we are today. Our people voted us in. To not engage on their input is not what we're here to do. What?
I don't think anybody would disagree with those comments there. We're living through unusual times, I guess, in terms of the restrictions and protocols that we have to face with COVID. This is only on an interim basis until we get that opportunity, that light, I guess, that comes to us to fully engage with the community. And we will do that. And once that opportunity is there, we'll fully engage with the community and put in place the necessary committees that provide for the membership to join in. Mallory?
I had similar concerns from put out a call for community members to join committees, and I don't see why we can't. Tagawani meets, right? The Three Fires Development Corporation, I think it's called across the road, they're meeting tonight. I mean, they have practiced safe social distancing just like we are tonight. And I don't see why we couldn't have meetings here or within the governance building. So I think that we need to at least post, something might be, you know, everybody's practicing social distancing. If we use that as, you know, this is what has to happen during your meetings, I think that will be fine. So I agree with Cody that we need to start up our committees, at least do a posting now, and maybe within a month, we can have meetings with community members.
Motion then to post for committee standing committees from the band membership. Moved by Valerie, second by Keaton. All those in favor? Opposed? I see no opposition to it. It's carried.
Okay.
Are you done now?
One more thing I want to add in my report. So there's a corporate priorities council meeting tomorrow. And we're supposed to be receiving backgrounders and updates as shareholders from 3 of the corporations. Now, you may have seen some emails saying their reports were misplaced. That's not the case. They were turned in at the end of the day on Friday. And so we didn't have time to upload them to the agenda before the weekend. So I wanted to touch base with you. We can add them first thing in the morning if you still want to hold that meeting, but my suggestion would be to postpone so you have time to review the materials.
Plus, there was the issue with Kimberly.
Oh, and Kimberly Thomas had planned to attend the meeting, and she'll be working with us on corporate restructuring, and she had to cancel her availability for Wednesday, so she'll probably be available if we're able to reschedule at a time that she's available.
Ron?
I was just gonna say, aren't we supposed to get corporate training? Because I'm pretty sure some of the members haven't had corporate training. I think it'd be in your best interest to get corporate training before we deal with the corporations.
And we have a day scheduled for that.
Yeah, I think it should come after that.
So we can reschedule the meeting then? Next week? What's your schedule like?
We have corporate training on June 2nd, Wednesday.
After the second phone.
James, clarify for me, is Kimberly going to be present on June 2nd?
No, she'll be over the big screen.
Okay, that's fine.
And so we could probably do it the next day on June 3rd.
Second and third?
Or the following week.
Agreed?
Is this the meeting for tomorrow, or?
Yeah, yeah.
So, Chief, just to be clear, we're canceling tomorrow's special
Rescheduling.
counseling year-end corporation audit, and we're rescheduling it to the 3rd? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
And the training on the 2nd is going forward.
Okay.
Good? All right.
Do we need a motion for that?
Motion to that effect then? Moved by Elaine, second please. Second by Brianne. All those in favor? Carried.
So the meeting on the 3rd, James, is that still gonna be 1 till 3?
Yep. 1 to 4.
1 till 4?
Just one quick item that was overlooked there under 6.1. I forgot to mention that we need a delegate for the June 9th meeting for the limited partnership. Any volunteers?
What day is that?
June 9th.
Is that Zoom?
Pardon me?
Zoom? Maybe?
I'll do it.
Ron?
Yeah.
Okay. And an alternate?
We don't need one, Ron will be there.
I can chill with Ron that day.
And Cody will be the alternate? Mover and second to that effect for those appointments? Moved by Valerie, second by Tyler, all those in favor? That's carried.
Time's this.
So the rest of mine are in camera, so I'm not sure if you want to deal with the counselor items first, okay, before we go in camera.
We'll deal with the council items first, I guess.
Is the briefing note and the Wi-Fi in camera too?
Is that part of your,
I hadn't seen it until now, so.
I'm not familiar with it either.
Louis, Louis sent it at the end of the day today. Oh, it's in her email.
Do you have a chance to see it?
I read it when I got here, that's what I was reading.
Your recommendations? They will. Okay, motion to go, no, with council stuff.
My question,
Yes.
okay, we've all agreed that we need to post for community, for committees. But as far as I recall, we haven't said how many members are gonna be sitting on these committees, or we haven't done that because we're focusing on a lot of other things. Should there be maybe a small task force to help do that? Because we've changed the whole structure.
Yeah. I thought we went through composition once, but.
So one option would be to post for the 6 committees that are established, and we can bring another draft terms of reference that includes number of committee members. You could probably go above if you wanted to. It would be your decision at that point in time, once we have applications.
Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, could we, like, have delegated one of our employees to maybe help assist with the committees to put forth meetings and gather information, set up times and stuff for committees? I know we have a chief's assistant, but I feel like we, as counselors, we need help too.
Yep, every committee will have a designated person, won't necessarily be a leash.
Okay.
Ron,
I think one thing you gotta make clear though is that when you have a committee, and you're the chairperson or one of the chairpersons, that it's at your discretion. You call the meetings, because if that's the case, you're gonna have administration running amok and driving the meeting. So I think we gotta have some ground rules if we're gonna do it like that. And go over the agenda with them and make sure it's on our deck as well.
Yep, I agree. Elaine?
And that's in a green binder, right? You go by the same committee rules and is it not in our green binder? That's what I read. The roles of committee members and counselors on committees?
Yep. That's still intact, yeah, that hasn't changed.
Was it approved?
Oh, yeah, was it approved?
Was it a draft?
Most things are a draft.
I'm not sure if that one was.
We'll have a look at it.
Okay.
Counselor items. Who's first there? number, Leon?
Yeah, I can.
No,
You don't go to that,
you got it, it's on camera?
I don't know, it's, the seniors building.
Yeah,
No, that should be.
no, it's not.
The elevator isn't working, so I got called from, some of the elders from the seniors building, and the air conditioner on the second floor went out, in the hallway, that's not in their individual apartments. They're, I guess, responsible for those, but the one in the hallway went out, so they needed another one. The chief gave permission for them to go look, as I was told, for a new air conditioner, and they went, like, by the time they got back, with the information, Tom and Al's was closed. So anyways, they're still waiting for that air conditioner. Nobody has went and, purchased it, because, there was a purchase order guaranteed, I think, by James and the chief. But nobody went and got their air conditioner yet, so they're still waiting. And the elevator, I'm not sure what the update is on that, but I don't think, like, that's a health and safety concern for elders, because some of them, I think the laundry is on the first floor.
Second floor.
Oh, so those that need to do laundry, that are living there, and some of them are in their 80s, have to walk up the stairs with their laundry baskets and, to do laundry. So I think that's an immediate concern, and that we need to, listen, and then, I think there's all kinds of issues with that building being so old, and all other, lots of different concerns, so I think something needs to be done. We need to actually have, maybe a meeting to discuss what needs to be done with that building. Like, actually, it's so old, it needs to be updated. We need to, start planning for a long-term, facility, because that one's not gonna last very long. We keep, and really, are we fixing the problems? It's just a Band-Aid solution. So I think we need a new facility, and we need to see where we can get the funding for that. So I think a special meeting has to be called with council and those, departments that would be responsible for some of them, like the home care, I don't know what other programs, are out there that deal with elders, the health center, like whatever committees or, programs that deal with elders. We need to be involved with what's needed for our elders in the future. Because we're all getting older. I mean, I'm like, I could be in that building right now myself, because I think the age of 50 years old, I mean, yeah. So I could be in that building myself right now, so. But I choose to be at home. But anyways, I think it's a real concern, when we have no elevators working in that building, and when it's hot, it's been 88 degrees, there's no air conditioner in the buildings upstairs. That was the concern I heard. And I just got a call when the meeting was started, that they're still waiting.
I think the primary issue there is management of that facility. That, I did get, calls, on that during the course of the weekend, very late, Saturday, I forget exactly what day, what time, but, during the course of the weekend. And they mentioned those same problems, and, I've heard those same problems before, like we've heard that, those problems should, typically go to operations and administration. The chief shouldn't be chasing down air conditioners for that facility. We got program staff and managers that do that. And I shouldn't be looking for that person. That person should be taking on the responsibility for the management of that facility and to ensure that it's running properly. They even have a site maintenance person on the facility there too that should be reaching out to the person that is in charge, whether it's lead there with the chief executive officer, or I also understand it's under the management of housing. So there's a layer there of responsible administrators that should be addressing the needs of those people. And,
Exactly, and it shouldn't be the elders that are running around looking for an air conditioner.
That's
I
right.
mean, these people probably don't even have vehicles, but they got somebody taking them around looking for, things that they need.
Yep.
So,
James, then Ron.
So we are looking at a more powerful unit because there's a boiler upstairs, so a normal window unit may not be sufficient for the hallway. And we have the elevator replacement scheduled. It was approved some time ago and it was scheduled for May. And I'm understanding that due to parts delays due to COVID, it's been rescheduled to early July, but it's still on target for the elevator replacement.
So you work to speed that up.
Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah, I identified these things a couple of times in our last term and at the beginning of this term. And they're ongoing, and I've had elders approach me when I've gone in there because my dad's in there. I've been in there a lot because I help my dad and he needs assisted help. But he won't say that. And many of them, they need it. I think it's high time that we look at this in a real in-depth manner. Yes, and direct that. I mentioned that to Valerie this weekend when we had a messenger chat, a bunch of us, I guess, and I chimed in. And you need a new facility, one with people that are younger age, they're older, but they're not elders, say, and unassisted, assisted, hospice and respite care all in one facility. And the elevator's been historically breaking down, and people, even when have passed away, have been, I guess, carried out of there in a unique manner that I think if most people knew, they wouldn't like it. There's a bunch of things that go on, and that building's probably almost outdated. It's almost 50 years old. Most things are 50 years old, and that's a limit on this of their lifespan. So I think each person is responsible for their own air conditioning unit. They've had upgrades. Windows sometimes it's really hot, sometimes it's cold in the winter. Sun's on one side, really hot. There's all kinds of things going on. And they're not handicap accessible in my guesstimation. If you need a walker, you can barely move around in there. If you need a wheelchair, it's even worse. And if you live on the second floor and there's a fire, God help us if there's a fire. Some poor people are gonna have a heck of a time getting down from there. And it's a rat trap. And I think, this has been going on and, you try to bring a little bit light to it, but I think this should be at the top of the deck. We're all aging, as Valerie pointed out. The next group of people that are aging are gonna be a bigger population. We have many people that go off reserve. And I think the other thing we have to think about is most people haven't had good incomes or pensions or benefits. So to get a place off reserve, I don't know if they'll be able to afford that. And I think that's another thing that we have to look at, is having someplace here for our people. And they all want to be home. So I think it's something that we really need to push. And I know I've heard it, and I know you have too, Charles, and probably Burton and others, and Keenan, that we need to have this facility. It needs to get done. There's no discussion. It's got to get done. It's got to be one of the top, that and a fire hall. You got to have those. So I just saying, got to find the money, got to find all of that, because we need it. We had a lot of people pass away, and they have to pass away, and then there's all these rules and regulations. You can't be with your family. It's hard. And our people just don't have it to travel and be away from theirs. So I think that's what we need to do.
I totally agree with you with all those points that you made there, that we need a facility that is one floor, that doesn't have multiple floors, so that we eliminate that issue with elevators and access straightforward. I think that it should be a priority, and it must be a priority for this community to house the seniors better, and that we refer this item to the infrastructure committee to start working on some immediate solutions and a long-term plan for the replacement of that. And that would be the instruction of this council for them to take up that challenge and to work on a solution for our seniors on that. options and solutions proposed to us, then the council can decide on marshaling resources, financial resources to make it a reality. So that's the challenge, and that's the instruction of council, then that's why we should proceed on this issue. I know that over the course of, when I was first approached, I did have a discussion with the Ontario Works people in terms of looking for the resources for the air conditioners and to do some fixes as well. You had mentioned the one upstairs, or ideally for the cooling off of the second floor, but also was mentioned the issue, the ongoing issue with the elevator. It's not something that happens this weekend. It's happened many times before, and it's something that's been with the councils for the last 15 to 20 years in terms of that. So it's something that I am not only facing, but it's something that hasn't been addressed in the past. So it's time to do something about it. And go ahead, Ron.
Just a quick add, we donated a generator that was meant for this purpose, for this facility that was donated by Union Gas. It's been given to the seniors, still not functioning, still not up and running. So when the hydro's gone out, no juice. So just an FYI for James and yourself.
Can we have a motion then to put forward the I guess the investigation into the feasibility of a new seniors complex? And that be directed to the infrastructure committee. Moved by Ron, second please. Second by Cody. All those in favor? Carried. There's instruction. Go to it. Go ahead.
When I get that air conditioner tomorrow, I want to report back to these people in the morning.
Yeah, I gave instructions to staff today, so
Okay.
yeah, we'll
when
make it a
the
priority.
elevators?
The elevators?
I want to hear July.
No, it's just a matter of bringing the maintenance person in as soon as we can. So rather than wait for the replacement, and then we should stop having maintenance issues so frequently.
There's a lot of different companies that think that do this.
Just come on, email on me,
Do it as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a matter of bringing the technician in now for a fix, but we had the long-term fix scheduled for July.
Cody.
We get a caretaker or something to help carry stuff for the elders while the elevator is broken.
There is one. There is one.
Maybe extra hand, because some of the oldest live up top there. And then you got some of the youngest living on the bottom. And, you know, they need help. I had to carry my dad, and a couple of years ago, he couldn't walk more than 60 steps, so I could only imagine what's going on there. And if we can hand out hamburgers and hot dogs to the community, we should be able to provide a working air conditioner for our elders. There's all kinds of department stores around. You know, we don't have to just stick with Canada. We can send couriers over to Port Huron, go look at Maya, and get them fixed up. We're North American. We gotta start thinking like North American. West.
It's big address, correct? Right. Marcia.
I think one of the problems that's coming to light in a new term here on council is that we tend to hire people without maybe a proper job description or authority. We give them no authority. We throw them in the role, here's your desk, here's where you sit. But just that kind gesture of common sense saying, oh, I gotta help so-and-so get their groceries up, I have to do that, I have to do this. And then what, do they have spending authority to do minor things? Like who controls, who oversees that? Because the other concern we had when we were chatting about this issue is that, well, there's a person, I don't know if it's housing that oversees it or what, but the person couldn't help that they reached because the supervisor wasn't there. Well, that in the real world would never fly. I mean, I always had to leave somebody in charge. I'm not here, you're in charge, I'm delegating you all my authority to deal with any issues that come up. We don't do that. Well, you know, the whole band could shut down because maybe 25 supervisors have to go to some kind of training, and then nobody knows what's going on. We really need to change the way we think out here so that we are, number one goal, we're focused on meeting the needs of the membership, period. And how do we do that? And that's gonna fall on your shoulders, James, to turn that all around so that we do, when somebody calls a program, they should never be hearing, I can't do that because my boss is gone. Then what's the point of them sitting there? Why are we paying for their time? Like, I've worked off the reserve much of my life, and I have never heard of some of the things that are going on. I'm in shock now, sitting here and hearing this. We were talking 25, 30 years ago about it's not a senior's home. This is more of the homes where they have more care medically and personal care. That's what we were talking about many, many years ago. And here we are again talking about the same thing. Why aren't we moving on things like this? That's my spiel.
Go ahead.
Just so everybody knows, Tom did try to convince Tom and Al's to give us the air conditioner that day that we were talking, and I contacted Best Buy. We both weren't successful, and I think for most vendors, they're out of stock. Places like Walmart. So we did try the best we could.
I guess if I might add to that situation, what really alarmed me, I guess, and I didn't want to bring it up, is that I understood that there is a common room there that has air conditioning in it, and that the management, I guess, of the structure there had to place that common room locked up. It has central air blowing into it, and they wanted to use it as a cooling center, because of all the issues that are related with the second floor and it being hot and stuff like that. They were locked out of there. They were told they couldn't go in there, and they could have used it as a cooling center. It's things like that I don't understand. Why do you do that to your own people? It's unbearably hot out, and you refuse them a refuge.
So if there was a fire in there, that's an exit through that common room. If it's locked, there's a real issue of liability here. This is just getting better.
You said that exactly right, because that's not lawful for them to do that if they're tenants in that building. If they're lawful tenants in that building, they're paying their rent and everything else, you cannot keep them from a common area. You're breaking the law if you do. So whoever set that in place was liable. If our seniors knew that, or if they had somebody there to advise them of their rights, I think you'd see a lot of those problems get better. I think if we got our directors involved more, coming to these meetings quarterly, because we hear a lot of the complaints, but the directors, we don't get answers from the supervisors. The directors are the ones that we stuck in place under James. I'd like them to see them step up, come to the council meetings and give us some directions, and we could hear what they understand. We could give them, direction, and if they need something from us, what better place to come to right here?
But do you know what that is, Chief? That's abuse. That is a form of abuse. We're abusing our seniors. I just.
Well, Well, it's something I just want to bring up because it's more of an HR issue, and I'll just leave it at that. We're on, yeah.
Thank you, John. Other points across?
Lisa, you had your hand up, I'll give you an opportunity to speak.
I believe the, rec room was shut down because when COVID first happened, they were having bingos every night.
Sorry, they were having.
Bingo.
Oh, bingo.
That's still shutting down, as I understand it.
Yep. You can't, that's their place, you can't do that, you can't tell them how to, nobody comes to your house and tells you what to do in your house. That's basically what they're doing when they do that. And if they wanted to complain and lay charges against somebody, they'd have that lawful right.
And again, I think we have layers of responsibility, whether it's through the housing director or the on-site maintenance management person. If they want to stop the bingo games, I imagine they can stop the bingo games, but I don't think they should lock the door on people because, again, that's a place of refuge for them to cool off. Welcome to council. So, after all this discussion, I would think that we would like to have perhaps the infrastructure investigate this a little bit more fully, I guess, and get some answers for the council in terms of the management structure and the operational guidelines there. As we mentioned in terms of job duties. Are they doing their jobs? Cody?
Could we have James go to different programs and see how they're doing? Do an inspection on all of our programs, especially systems like the old folks home. Go to the schools, see how they're operating. Go to Public Works, do a ride-along, see what these guys are doing. Ask them questions. That's what HR is about. You have to engage with your employees. Find out what's going on. That's how you save us from all these lawsuits. Start doing your job, James. Get on it.
I think, James should be, the main person helping the infrastructure, committee, because he's got the authority over these programs. So I think with the assistant of the infrastructure committee, so he would take the lead, I would think.
And as I understand it, housing has the responsibility for the operation of the.
My understanding.
Okay, all right, got it. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, can we move on? We got another goodie there?
I think we're just gonna finish the counselor items and then go in camera. Cody?
Cody, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss about the greenhouse situation. We heard Clinton Summers' presentation thoroughly, more than enough times to make a decision. We heard back from Tigana, your thumbs up on the property. I was wondering if we could get that off the table and make a decision.
I thought there was a decision, but it was approved because
Yeah,
they have a
that's what
deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah, for funding or something.
We approved it? I thought it was,
My understanding was that council was waiting for a work plan, a finished work plan. Oh, a business plan, I guess, that hasn't been finalized yet. It's true, we've met with Taganing, they were going to provide us some, fine points, I guess, to help, move that plan along, but that, my understanding is that's where it's hanging, just those few hooks, so, like I said initially, I was rather willing to move on it, but, the business plan isn't done yet, as far as I understand.
well, I think it's a very beneficial project for the community. gonna be feeding us. Not only us, it's gonna generate, brain cells to develop in our youth. They can, start being, a little more, naturalized, as you like to call it, rather than, colonized, where they could grow their own food and produce their own food rather than having to buy it and beg for it. So I think this program should have a decision quickly to get it, moving. We kind of brush things under the rug. Does it really need a business plan? Because it's more of a plan-based learning than something financially gaining. We can ducktail the program from it, from all kinds of different projects and programs and structures. But we want to get this initially thing going and started. So if there's
I guess if you want to begin the project without a plan, I guess you can proceed.
If I remember correctly, they had a plan. I mean, they had like phase 1, 2, whatever, but, and then they needed, approval from council to get, because their money was gonna run out or something by the end of the fiscal year, and that we were supposed to make a decision on that one. I was in favor of it to begin with. So, I don't know what happened.
I don't think there's anybody in this room that's against it. It's just the need to proceed it on, I guess, a planned basis.
Well, they had phase 1, 2.
I understand they have phases on it, but they don't answer questions such as replacing equipment over time and stuff like that to a nonprofit.
That's why Clint was gonna lobby for more funding. He just wanted to initiate they have the greenhouse available, they have the land available. They were just waiting on us to make a decision pretty much. And we keep coming at them and saying, we need more information, we need more information. But by the time we receive that information, we're gonna be out of a term and you know, that's something that our community really needs.
I think over council.
Well, memory serves me right. I remember this conversation quite well. And nobody was against it. It was the residual income that comes in with the business. And I remember Cody even saying, I don't know how to work with a business without a business plan for a profit. And there was others that said the same thing around this table. So those were some of the things I recall, and that's why we went with we need a business plan, because we need to say, how are you gonna keep this going? Are we funding this? Who's funding it? Are they getting Taganing? I remember those questions being asked. Is Taganing funding it? It wasn't just about the land. Who's gonna be backing this up consistently?
Well, look at that camera and tell the community that
we just did. Like, that was the question.
Yeah.
It was recorded that day too.
Well,
that was the discussion.
Okay, then you're against it then.
I'm not against it. I just said, everybody wasn't against it. Everybody was in favor of it. So it was just a matter of the business plan. That was it. It was clarification.
What's the pleasure of council? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we approve that, so they can go ahead.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to proceed with the greenhouse project. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposition? I see none, it's carried. Good luck. Just remember the Wi-Fi project proceeded without a plan as well. Okay, let's carry on.
Second discussion with the ferry, I got elders asking me, what is our situation with that? They have pension dollars sitting over there in the States, and they're getting price gouge from couriers to go get their pension. Some of them are even handing over half of their US pension, and they're not being able to survive. They also got mail over there, and among other things. I think a lot of us are fully vaccinated, and we can even set up security there to keep Canadians out as long as we open in for First Nations. We as First Nations are North American. We don't have a border, and we have the lack of supplies in Ontario right now. There's all kinds of kids that are sad they can't get a toy for their birthday. Stuff like that, entertainment that keeps people home. These are all been taken away from Walmart and whatnot. We need supplies to strive and survive. There's even businesses available over there where we could reach out and make strike deals if they get supplies over here in our territory from over there. So I just want to know what's going on with that. Do we have to talk to Elginak to see how far they are, or we got people that want to know what's going on.
James?
In terms of the border protocol, we have a meeting with both Public Health Agency Canada and CBSA. Right now, CBSA is allowing us to cross without any restrictions. So it's actually this other agency that's now in place, Public Health Agency Canada, that's put some rather onerous restrictions on our members returning. That's made it quite difficult. And briefly, we had a similar exemption to Akwesasne, where we had to provide a plan upon re-entering Canada. But now that's no longer the case, and now it's a bit more onerous.
So we give up our rights and put the border in front of there, and we're taking orders from Canada now.
Well, we do have a meeting, and at that meeting, I think we'd be in a position to set the agenda, because Akwesasne does have a different protocol in place, and because we are hearing about needs from members to cross to the U.S. for different reasons, and family in the U.S. That may need to visit for different reasons. So we do want to discuss with them why they've reverted back to the old restrictions with us, and we'll have an update after that meeting. So the goal really is to set the path forward, to put a protocol in place.
That's almost like putting an Indian agent back up at the bridge here. We got to exercise our rights. We're North American. And I don't like that hanging over us with COVID rules, Canada bond restrictions. They're strangling us to death with those. We got to exercise our rights here.
So especially if I hear from council that that's the direction that we want a protocol like Akwesasne, where we're recognized as a cross-border community, we can aim for that.
Well, it's certainly my desire to look at that type of arrangement, and I don't think we're putting anything on sacrifice. I think that we have to look at acting as a responsible nation, I guess, in terms of our interaction with other nations. If there are certain restrictions that are set in place by a nation that we want to visit, then we have to respect that. Same with our borders. That if they want to come and visit us, they have to abide by our rules. But we just can't, I guess, say that it's impinging upon our rights because there are certain restrictions as to health. I think that everybody wants to ensure that this community stays healthy. And that we send people into a highly infested place like the state of Michigan, then surely that our people are going to get infected and bring it back, even if they have the proper vaccinations. So I think it's incumbent upon us to act in a very responsible manner, to abide by convention and the rules around us to ensure that everybody stays safe.
But at the same time, our bridge is wide open to murderers and drug dealers and bikers and COVID, and we got a very sensitive number reaching in Toronto as well, so we're kind of wide open to that. I mean, if we're just opening a ferry to band members, allowing them to go get supplies, advise them to be safe, wear their masks, stand 6 feet away from each other, do the best they can to protect themselves. Start treating it like AIDS instead of, you know, if you don't want AIDS, you wear a condom, you don't have sex. If you don't want COVID, wear a mask or stay home. Rules like that apply. I'm tired of listening to COVID. I wanna hear about our rights for North Americans.
Okay.
So one possibility we could pursue is to propose a central intake or an internal intake process where it could be as simple as a letter from the chief to, and we can, verify through our help that there's a plan in place, but some kind of mix where members that do need to cross into the US for some reason or another are able to do so in a reasonable fashion, but where we're not opening the risk up more than we'd like to.
Oh,
Who's meeting with them? Just you? I think this is a political issue.
I'll be there.
Yeah, the chief.
Well, politicians need to be at that table with the chief.
I think,
Because there are like many issues of pension. I know because my family falls into that category as well. They get pension from the states, but they can't go over there and get their money or whatever. I don't know if they have instant bank and banking online or anything, but these are older people, so they probably don't. I haven't been able to go visit my daughter in over about a year and a half. Because she's not allowed to come here, and I'm not allowed to go there. I mean, and she just lost a son that's buried here. So we, things like that, we need to make sure that we protect our community members and let them do the things they need to do. Especially this is for healing.
I've had family members cross the border. I've got some that do it on a regular basis because they have a job over there. But I've also had family members come here, they had to quarantine and stay here for 2 weeks, plus they had to get a test done when they crossed the border. So I don't know if, my understanding of what was explained to me was that authorities on both sides have stated that they can't stop Native people from crossing the border, and that it's a treaty right. And there's a handful of community members that cross that border every day. So where people are being told that they can't go, we got community members that go. And just know, word of caution, most of them have had COVID. So it's fine and dandy, and I agree with, exercising our rights. The only caution that I have, and I've watched this happen to our community members where they got shunned by this community. What are you doing traveling back and forth? I watch them get called stupid and everything else. And that's coming from our own community members to community members. So I think there's got to be a little bit of caution. I mean, I agree. There's a lot of things that I need from over there too that I can't get here. I think we're all in that same boat, but I don't know. I don't know what community's reaction is gonna be if we have a half a dozen people go over there and they come back and they bring COVID back to this community. Right? What are we willing to accept at this table? Because that's where it's gonna come back to, is this table, each and every one of us. Right, so I'm game. I've been wanting to go there for over a year. I go crazy about it. But the reality of it is, right, I take a bashing because I've got non-natives at my campgrounds. They keep to themselves, but still, that community perception, then they're still questioning the cottagers that come over here. Right? So at the end of the day, it becomes a question of what are we willing to accept here? We run that ferry once, say every 2 weeks. That's fine. I agree with it.
I'd like to do that, but when something goes wrong, you know, how much of the backlash are we willing to accept? Because that's where it's gonna come, is right here. And that's nothing against anybody, but I just try to think of this community as a whole, and I know how some of these people act in this community. Right? So, that COVID fatigue is a real thing, like Tyler mentioned it, I've been feeling it for months. Right? I thought it was a good discussion as to what we said, what can we do? Right? I like that concept. If we can make it fairly safe that we can cross that border, I'm all for it. But what's the risk that things can go wrong too? Right, so I just put that word of caution out there. I like that we're thinking outside the box and start to do things. I think we need to do that. God, I've met kids in the last couple of weeks that are extremely upset because they can't do nothing. They don't have that social interaction with other kids. I mean, this is the reality of where we're at. So I know we're all struggling to make ends meet, but I think we gotta be careful that we don't bash each other up either. Right? We're here to figure this out together, so I'd like to see us move on that path. So, I don't know if having, like, if people put shopping lists or whatever together and then send certain people over, right? So people that are less susceptible to COVID, you know, I don't know if that's the right thing or not to think, but I think about those things and I'll be honest about it. Because I've had that question mark and I've had my cousin actually pick stuff up over there for me and bring it here. Right, so that's kind of my thoughts at this point, is that I always get shook up around this stuff, so. Which.
Cody?
If that's the case, if everybody's worried about what the community would think, then we should let the community vote on this. Then that would take the stress and strive off of our shoulders. We get a real decision made here. But I have family over there that I haven't seen in 2 years now. There's a baby growing that never seen his Muskokan family. You know, things like that. That's a band member over there, stuck over there. 2 band members. There's probably more that everybody's related to around here. And that's probably not the end of it. There's a lot of families out here that have ties to the States, that have family over there. Financial issues over there. They got banking over there. They got jobs. They have lives over there. We all know the morons that like partying and stuff. You gotta stay the hell away from them. So there's a strong need to get that going. Like COVID, I haven't seen my grandmother in over 2 years because of this thing. And that's me being smart about it, staying away from her. But is that really being smart about it? Am I saving her from 2 years, or is that the last 2 years? Am I going to be able to give her a hug? If you ask me, we're all vaccinated here. They don't allow the vaccinated people to go over there and travel, and I thought that's the reason for the vaccination. It seems that we get more and more rules and regulations pounded on us, even though we're going the right way and trying to defend everybody from COVID. Ontario, you can't always trust them. Look at Trudeau, you guys cross-eyed. Look at Doug Ford, his brother smoked crack, he probably smoked crack with him. And we're listening to these people? They're guiding us the best way they can? Come on. We have to stand up and start thinking. There's always going to be those morons that go all over the place. We know who they are. Be smart about it. A couple of idiots shouldn't ruin it for a whole nation. We got family members that need to go over there. Businesses that can't survive because they can't get goods. Hell, lumber's cheaper over there. Building materials. you need on a day-to-day basis. We could have our list of recommendations on what you need to go over there, your mask, your gloves, you know, stuff like that, make guidelines. Don't always put it on the morons. Oh, I know morons that do this and that. Why let morons ruin everything for everybody? We all have a brain in our head. We all put on our own underwear. We all put on our own shoes and socks. Let's make regulations, guidelines, recommendations. We're being pounded on how to live our lives because of this COVID thing. Now, it breaks my heart not to give my nephews and nieces a toy for their birthday. They think they're bad. Little kids. They look for two days a year, Christmas, their birthday, Halloween, stuff like that, where Canada's stripping that away from everybody. They're taking away their baby guns, they're taking away their freedom of speech, they're taking away their 12 gauges for duck hunting, they're taking away everything. And this is another thing they're taking away from us. And damn it, I'm tired of it.
I think we're all tired of it. Marcia?
I think the point is made from what I hear is that we are a sovereign nation. This group here, we can make laws for our members. We don't ever want to give that up. We want to enhance and let people know, let the government know, never let them forget we're a sovereign nation and that we speak for our members. So when you negotiate with the governments or whoever, that always has to be at the forefront. That's always there. Never give in on that issue. But then on the other hand, we're hearing about the health and safety of the membership as well. So we're walking in one shoes here, one shoes here. So how do we make that gel? How do we satisfy everyone? Is it feasible? What do we have to do to open that ferry? Is it a matter of just going to the municipality of Algonac and saying, what plans the ferry starting on this date? And have your people ready? As James said, do we have to carry our cards with the 2 vaccinations? Like, what is it that's going to make our people feel safe? And at the same time, have our people exercise their rights as First Nations, North American. It's recognized from the government of the United States that we're North American. I got a personal letter from President Biden from the White House telling me he's giving me $1,400 in stimulus pay this week. They recognize we're North American. So let's not forget that. And you can hear people's passion here tonight. And I think the point has been made that, and I think Keenan or someone said, think out of the box, and that's what I'm hearing. People are thinking outside of the box. So, miigwech.
Additional comments? What?
I'd like to see the CEO work on a border protocol agreement with whoever he needs to contact, whatever legal firm he needs to consult with, and look into the cross-border community that is operating in Cornwall. They have their own crossing back and forth, different customs. I think we need to develop something. I think we are a nation, and we got to start acting like a nation. I think it's there, and I think we're going to get recognized if we just start making those steps. And we're going to run into some opposition. Maybe they're going to threaten our funding here and there, whatever, but I think we have to move. I think it's us to stand up and make a declaration We are First Nation. We were here first. We were recognized. And this is our area over there. I know there's land claims over there, but we never filed a legal claim and started the court process. We did look into it. The lawyers gave us all kinds of affirmations that, yeah, you've got a valid claim, but the expense that they're talking about is way overhead at the time. But it's something we gotta have to do. But right now, let's start exercising our right. We have the right to cross the border. We've got band members doing it now, back and forth, band members. So if we can get the ferry up and running and get, I know the governor over there was already just on the news, not last night, but the night before, saying he wants the border open because they're hurting for cash over there too. Canada, the Canadians supply a lot of movement of cash to their entrepreneurs on the other side of the border, the grocery stores, the lumber stores, the clothing stores. A lot of that purchase power is down from what it was. They want the money to start moving again. So I think we'd have an ally over there. And I do believe too, this is a political push. I think if we direct the chief to work with James on meeting with whoever he has to meet over there, whatever the best avenue for us to approach, that's the way we go, and we stand together on this. Band council behind him. If he needs to take council with him, and that would probably be a good idea. I know chiefs in the past have done that. They've taken sometimes the whole council off to Toronto to meetings to justify and speak up on behalf of the band. So that's my feeling towards it, and I think it's something we got to get going like tomorrow. Miigwech.
Jolene. I think she needs medical assistance. 911?
Yeah.
Is she all by herself?
Should I call the police or? EMS.
She needs an ambulance.
Who's going out there? She all by herself? Someone should go with her. Two of them?
Yep, there's a young lady here. She needs some medical. Oh. There's a, yep.
I'll make a motion to that effect, chief, that the CEO start working on that protocol and contact whoever he needs to move ahead with it.
Sure.
Second that.
The motion is to be it resolved that the council instructs the chief and James to negotiate with the necessary federal agencies to establish a protocol for the free passing, I guess, of our members across the border to conduct their business. That be done in a respectful and healthy manner.
Yep,
Agreed?
sounds good.
It's been moved, seconded. Jody, all those in favor? Carried. Next.
Ron, on that? Yeah, just in regards, I've seen people posting about the permit or the pleasure boat. I wasn't here when they made the motion to do that, but I had some of the OPP call today from Aboriginal Policing and asking me what are the parameters, and they understand about the charge. There's no issue with that, and we would like assistance on helping or enforcing it, I guess, from their services within the area. But also, what happens if you, if they don't abide by it? So what they were getting at was there's no charges or somewhere to follow up. So usually you go with a warning first, and then you ask them to go buy the permit or whatever at said facilities or from individuals. But if they don't comply, you know, say a third time, or even the second time, they're usually charged. And that's what they were wondering is how do we plan on enforcing that? Because they're getting kind of questioned and wondering what to do next. I guess he tried to get a hold of James as well and our police, and they weren't too sure either on what was, I guess, the different things. And I know back in the day, and probably Lyle was a bylaw when they did that, was they used to confiscate fishing equipment, like for fishermen and whatever, hunters was guns and boats and other things. So I guess there's just some, I guess, clarification and then also a ticketing system of some sort, and possibly, you know, how do we get the other legal entities involved to, if it's charged out here, how do we get them on board? I guess that was kind of just some preliminary discussions. It was nothing too in depth, and I said, well, I'd ask that question because it was unclear to me as well. And there was a lot of questions. You could see the verbatim. I'd seen people posting it. You know, I was like, man, I'm not posting that because there's just too much open. I don't know. And from what I seen in the news clippings when I was looking online, some of the wording was transposed. So it was like saying members need to do this or whatever, and there was a lot of different questions, and I'm not going to get into all of that. But I think it needs some clarification and some other things and how we can do that. And there was only one other police officer that knew how to lay charges under the bylaw. That person is no longer here, and they're retired. And I told that OPP liaison to maybe check with them and see if they still do that type of charge, and it was still heard in this area. So, and I also advised them that our bylaws are very antiquated and need to be revised. So, you know, those were just some of the things that I had in our initial discussion for this issue in particular. So, I don't know. It's just out there. I'm not saying it's wrong or whatever, but I'm just saying we need to clarify and make some things or adjustments as we move along here.
No, those are good points. You identify some dead ends, I guess, in terms of what ifs, I guess in terms of progression of warnings, etc. My understanding is, though, that irrespective of our sovereignty, we still don't have that lawmaking capacity yet, and we have yet to issue that. We could do that tomorrow if we wanted to, and I think we should. As I mentioned before, that all we have to do is declare our own independence, you know, and move away from the 1982 Canada Act. That's one thing they don't want us to discuss when we sit down into these roundtables is the Canada Act and their supreme law of the land. And the other thing that they don't want us to discuss at all is the Charter of Rights, because they believe that we're going to do things that are contrary to the Charter of Rights. But again, that's their charter. I guess that's their ideal of how humans should treat humans. And I guess that would be left up to us on how we treat ourselves. And once we get to that responsible stage, and I believe that we are there now, that we should practice that and start to instill that through, I don't want to call it a constitution, but some type of fundamental law that governs our ability to enact a law and to interface with other jurisdictions. Because I still believe that we have to work on a cooperative basis in terms of co-management and sharing of co-resources at times, whether it comes from the wealth of Canada or what. We have to realize that we don't have the necessary resources to implement fully our laws that the way we wish to do it. But we'll get there as we get move towards sustainability. And with regards to the, I guess the existing, our stipulations for that pleasure craft license, that we can still utilize, we don't have to be subject to it, but we can utilize the Indian Act to our advantage, because we can still use the trespassing aspect of the Indian Act, which is a federal statute, to enforce on those people. And there is methods to enforce the federal law, the statute as it stands now. All we have to do is provide instructions to do so. Well, you got additional comments?
You touched on exactly what I was going to say, but I agree with the warning on the first offense, you document it. Second offense, if there's a second offense, you call the police in and they give a warning or whatever, and they'll document it properly. And if you have to lay charges, a little bit of history, when, and before we had the Highway Traffic Act in Walpole, being accepted by Walpole. That's a kind of a long story, but prior to that, when we laid tickets way back in the day with Randy Sony, we always wrote the ticket pursuant to Section 6 of the Indian Act. And we named the section and we wrote the ticket up for whatever fine amount that was, allocated to that speed. But that's one way is by accepting the Trespass to Property Act, which is a provincial statute. And that could stay in place until we make our own law. The other option I was thinking is, along with your law, which you just mentioned, the pursuant to the Indian Act, trespass to property. That's a federal law, which is a lot more stringent because you're giving the person a criminal record. They're going to be, why take chances in getting a criminal record because you're breaking a federal act? That's a strong deterrent. But if we went to court and lost some of those cases, then we put that kind of in jeopardy and we'd have to go to higher courts and you're starting a big rollout process, legal process. So I think the lesser of two evils would be pursuant to the provincial statute.
I think over the longer term that we have to look at the total package of this in terms of, if we're going to put laws in place that govern, I guess, activity within our territory, then we're going to have to need the supporting institutions to, adjudicate our laws. We don't have that yet. It's going to have to be our own tribal system, tribal court system. I would see it that it would be patterned quite similar to what they have in the United States. And again,
Do they have that out west?
we have to look at
Canada?
providing our own declaration of independence
I
away
did,
from Canada. And
in
that's
Saskatchewan,
very
there was a
strong
man that
note,
was
which
doing
means
that.
We'll have to enact our own passports. We kick out the customs that we have at the ferry now. We put our own customs in place, and when we travel, we're going to have our own passports to gain entry somewhere. We're still going to have to abide by international rules with the interface and the interaction between nations.
Better own choice.
So there is a lot to do with this. Yeah.
Can James explain that letter that he sent out regarding the issue we're talking about? Because I didn't know where that came from. It didn't come from the stable, so.
It came from a motion of council from the previous term. And so the motion was to reinstate the pleasure craft license. And we had an administrative process that we were able to fall back on. So there has been planning taking place up until now. So we do have an FAQ that we're ready to put out because the majority of questions we're getting is, can I navigate through the waterways without a permit? And we actually had this discussion with council last term for these what ifs, so we have answers we had already prepared. So the answer is yes for the purposes of the permit, but not through the channels. But you can navigate through the Sny or the St. Clair River. And then the other common question is, I'm fishing, I have a fishing license, do I also need a pleasure craft license? And the answer is no. So the primary reason for this was two sets of complaints. One was speeding in the channels, primarily jet skis. And the other was boat parties in fish beds, places like Pocket Bay, Johnson Bay. And there were members convincing them to leave and potentially putting themselves in a bad situation. So this was meant to formalize it more so that resource protection can require a permit and to educate them with the permit of where they shouldn't be going. So people that are fishing with a fishing license can go to those places, but what we've been hearing from Resource Protection and everybody else is that people that are fishing generally do it in a way that's ecologically sustainable. But some of the boat parties we were seeing, particularly because of the high waters, didn't look sustainable, right? You might have 30 cabin cruisers on a fish bed, that kind of thing. So that was the intention of rolling this forward. In talking to the OPP liaison today, he brought up some hesitations around the Provincial Trespass to Property Act, and they're looking into the Indian Act criminal statute. And we had this discussion with the last council, and the last council was averse to bylaws, I found, in most cases, and the answer I got is let's rely on trespassing from the Indian Act or trespass to property. So that was the route we had been told to go.
Keenan?
There's a need for one point of clarification, and this comes up quite often, actually, when they first came out with the pleasure craft. I was on Resource Protection then. But the clarification that I think that needs to be put out there, should have been part of the public notice, was, I guess the reality around navigable waters. So the way I've explained it, and this is kind of from our lesson from the first round, right, is looking at what waters are actually surrendered within our territory. And the only piece that exists is the Seaway Cutoff. So what I've been explaining to people was that the Chenally Carter, the Snipe, the Johnson, the Bassett, the Shematagan, those are not navigable waters. Those are specific to Walkwalla First Nation and do not fall under Navigable Waters Act. So the proof in the pudding is that the Seaway Cutoff has been surrendered by this First Nation. But that's the only parcel from Louis to Louis. So I think going forward with this, that parcel needs, that piece of information needs to be out to the general public as well. Because right now, if you look at the comments that are coming down on Facebook and other social media sources, right, is they're saying that Walkwalla First Nation people can't do nothing about it because it's all navigable water. So I think it's kind of high time to put our foot down and get that clarification through to everybody.
I totally agree. I think that we've been, I guess, insulted long enough, I guess, in terms of our presence and our ability for our members even to go on a day trip to Seaway Island and being forced off that island or insulted out there by Americans. And I think it's time for the pushback. If it means we need more boats in the water as a Marine Patrol, then let's do that. That's part of enforcement, and that makes our presence out there. We don't maintain our presence out there and do the things that we want to do in terms of showing our authority to control our waters and to control the people that come into our waters, then we lost the game. But if we're going to look at pushing back and to maintain and look at exerting our authority and our presence, then we have to come to the task of providing the boats and manpower to be out there in an organized, structured manner to enforce our law. And that's what we have to do, is to enforce law. We have to get away from this whole concept where this secondary tier of authority, of delegated authority through bylaw. If we say we have law, then let's start exercising and identify our motions as law. I agree. It's time to act. Shut this down.
Boom. Bring the KFC.
James.
So the other thing we want to mention in the FAQ, since you touched on it, the COVID security group did recommend 3 additional resource marine patrols. So that's the common question we're getting, how are you going to enforce this? And so we are planning on increasing the marine patrol.
And that's the key, enforcement. We say we have a law, and then let's enforce it. You know, let's not be afraid, let's not back away from that confrontation. If it means confrontation, then we're protecting our territory. And I think that's what our ancestors wanted, for us to maintain our territory, to make sure that our people are protected. Those are our boundaries. James?
The other piece, I completely agree, Keenan, in terms of there being no surrender for the Snai. So why is the Snai a navigable water? But we did have in the literature that it was, and that came more out of discussing with the RCMP last year, because they were treating it as a navigable waterway. I think it's been treated that way by different agencies over the years because it had been a cargo route into Wallaceburg.
Beach.
So, you know, it was the idea that if an American could convincingly show that their navigational route took them through the Snai to go back to another US destination, they were letting them do that. So, and just, we're getting a lot of calls from people that actually live on the Snai with boats, saying, what does this mean for us? But, I mean, that can be revisited. We haven't released FAQ yet. If we wanted to say no to use the Snai, this applies.
Just, I guess just a side note, and I've seen the map. I don't know if you know where the cable ferry is on St. Anne's, where it lands on the mainland side.
Yeah.
So that field, there's like a triangle piece there, is listed as preserved, as Walkwam First Nation.
If part of the transmission line goes, Hydro One's go through there, so that's why we're looking at putting our windmills before on that island, because we could link up through the Blue Sky Kent, and they all recognize it. It's listed as that, the exact what it says.
Know that?
Okay. Marcia?
It may have helped a bit, James, with your announcement if you would have cited which council approved that, because I'm looking at it, people ask me, where did this come from? I don't know. And then maybe our game plan wasn't correct. We should have had our ducks in order before we made the announcement and had our resource or whoever's going to enforce all lined up. And we all understood exactly, because there's so many different interpretations I'm hearing, is this navigable or what is this? We don't know. So we need to sit down and get that information out, but we also need to all understand it.
I thought I heard it correctly, though, in terms of, the question is whether it's navigable or not. The way I understand it, it's for us to determine that. That's what you're suggesting there, and I agree with you. We don't have to worry about the province. We don't have to worry about the feds. It's our water. Let's determine how we're going to use it. That's the way I hear it. Now let's move on. Beating this to death.
Here's the last thing, though. I think we can
We're gonna put
evaluate
you in a
it.
canoe and send you out.
I know I took
Start
quite,
sailing.
no, I took a great risk in going ahead with this. After the season, I think we can reevaluate it and make changes we need to make, or scrap it if it's not working, but, I mean, that's another thing.
Can we get a boat, a speedboat with a 50 cal on it?
But I was just gonna say that, I've got a lot of non-native friends that supporting what we're doing. Right, so it's the naysayers that are the loudest, but the people that have appreciation for what Wahoo has, have admiration for what we're doing.
You know what, I've heard the same thing from a number of individuals, even in the town of Wallaceburg. They said, it's about time you start doing that to push back all these people that are abusing your territory. Show no respect for it. we've got our supporters.
You ever, did you see that Dan Drake, man, they're racist on there? So, yeah.
Expected.
I don't know how you can do that.
It's fun.
Okay, who is next here with their,
We're dead in camera now.
Oh, no, you're giving me.
Oh, Elaine?
Sorry.
Actually,
Okay.
gotta go.
Oh, Tyler?
You can go first.
Okay.
All right.
I sent this morning, from Nibi Shagnash. It's everybody should have the hard copy. I think. Okay. So what it was is just, I was talking to Nibish about what's going to happen because my daughter is in grade 8, and I was like, what's going on? And they said they weren't sure, so we were trying to put our heads together, and so it was just decided that she was going to write a quick letter. Like, this was just decided like on Friday, so I seen Marcia's comments on it, and I knew those were going to arise, but it was kind of just to get the ball rolling, and to see if council wanted to help out with the grade 8 graduates in supporting them with a laptop or something that they can use heading into grade 9. And just thinking about what Marcia said and everything, yes, the LKDSB does provide iPads to students, but the St. Clair Catholic does not. There is no specific price in here. I did look up some at Staples and stuff, and Chromebooks, something that they're used to right now, ranges from $300 to $500, based on what's available in it. And then policy, again, I was thinking we could put it under, like, because of COVID, it's a unique year. There's not much, they didn't do anything because nothing could happen, fundraisers or anything like that couldn't really carry on or anything like that. So I said, why don't we bring it to council and see if there's anything that council would be willing to donate or anything else? Because I was even thinking we could just use it as a gift from council for this unique year, for this one time, just a recognition of our graduates, and not just elementary, because there's Unzoff Reserve as well. There's more grade 8 graduates coming from other areas as well, and maybe throw a call out and to give them just a gift on behalf of chief and council, even in that form, or approve, looking for a laptop or anything like that, because we do provide laptops for high school students heading into post-secondary, or even if they're just heading into the workforce. That's a gift to commonly as well. So I just thought I'd bring it here. I told her to write it out. She did, so I brought it here. I knew it was going to be quick, but I just wanted to kind of open it to discussion and to see if anybody had ideas, or if it's a bad idea, then I'll keep my mouth shut.
No, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's a good idea. Kim?
I'm in full support of this, and then I was also thinking that the money could come out of that reverse tuition. So if you recall, I think education came here with a plan to expand the parking lot or something like that, right? And then we're gonna use that reverse tuition dollars to pay for it all. So I think that money would be more suitable for exactly this. Which,
Marcia?
Okay, so I have a couple of, I am not against rewarding our children, absolutely not. They deserve whatever we can give them. However, in saying that, I'm wondering why this council cannot continually to make decisions bypassing the authorities we have in place. We have a principal and we have an interim director of lifelong learning. They're in charge of their budgets. And I don't even know at this point, because I haven't even gotten into the finance, who's in charge of this reverse tuition money, where it's sitting, and what are the plans for it? We can't take away the management's role of overseeing their budgets and their programs if we make the decision here. So they should have been the ones to put forward this letter requesting in a briefing note where the money would come from and all of that. And if we're going to approve of this expense, then it's something that all children should have access to. I've always said, and I think I've said it here, always when I worked for the band, when I was asked for anything, I always asked myself, okay, if I approve this, can I afford to do this for every single person in that would require it? And if the answer was yes, fine, do it. If the answer was no, then I can't help you. But there are students in Wallaceburg and in the surrounding areas, they're not counted in the nominal roll if they don't attend Walpole Island School. So if we're going to open it up and include those students, where's the money going to come from? Our educators are our supervisory people at the school have to have the opportunity to give input into a request like this. I know we've rewarded them with trips and that. We can't do that right now because of COVID. But there must be something else we can do because we're opening it wide open here. Maybe 28 students now, but by the time we get done, and don't think those parents don't know this, we could have 150 students in the same situation that are Walpole Island members. So I'm all for giving rewards in some manner, but principal and the director of Lycon, they should maybe put something together for us, and then they will identify the budget or whatever we're going to do for these students, because it isn't just the grade 8 students going into high school. All our children have had a rough year, every one of them, and the parents. So those are things I'd like everyone to consider. But
Ron, I totally agree. I think we should have all of them incorporated, not just elementary, not just high school, but post-secondary as well. And historically, we've given all of them either laptops, pads, or monetary, whatever. And I just think some of the kids now through George's principal have got Chromebooks and other things. Those are more practical. So they might not need a laptop. They might not need a pad. I don't know. I think maybe it should be up to their discretion or the family's discretion on what they would like. Maybe it is a monetary something. I don't know. But I think we should take that all into consideration and bring them back with a figure so that we incorporate all of them groups in a bigger number and we can prove it all at once. Sure. That would be my suggestion.
Yep. Wait.
Does it include the Islam immersion students too?
What?
The immersion.
They're not in grade 8 yet.
That's separate, right? Does that include that?
Well, this request is just for the grade 8 graduating students. Right now, immersion sits at grade 3 or 4?
4.
Grade 4 right now.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then, that we do want to look at some type of reward or recognition, I guess, for their achievement. by conquering grade 8, and we're looking at providing some type of recognition to both our students on and off reserve, because this council is fair, I guess, in terms of sharing those resources that we have, and we have to reward them all the same, I guess, what I'm trying to say. We can't leave anybody out by any type of artificial restriction. So I would pick up on Marcia's suggestion that we direct that to the educators and the people that control the education budgets to pick up the task to identify who they are, both on and off reserve. Some estimate, I guess, on that. And I think the easiest way, as identified on this side of the room, is that to look at some type of monetary reward for them and let them decide on what they wish to choose. Some homes have 2 or 3 laptops, and maybe they don't want another laptop, and maybe it's something else to assist with their schooling. Maybe it's clothing, maybe it's something else. Uniform they need. Maybe in the towns it's bus tickets to get to the university. Maybe it's lunches. Something that is an extension program directly from here, but they still have their needs, and by small token, we should be able to provide something to them as part of that recognition. James?
So just for clarity, are we looking at grade 8s or milestone years, like grade 8, grade 12, or all students?
Grade 12 has already been provided. We approved that months ago. But yeah, I think it's milestone, like bigger transitions. Okay. Grade 8 to grade 9. We already did 12 and up.
And I think if they did post-secondary and they completed
Post-secondary graduates.
their graduates, I think they should, and we did it before.
Yep. I think we have a general agreement then. Can I have a motion to the effect as follows? Be it resolved that this council supports the provision of some type of monetary reward for recognition of a job well done in terms of graduating grade 8 and proceeding on to high school in grade 9, and that we instruct the education personnel to provide us with a budget.
I'll move.
Moved by Tyler, seconder by Ron. All those in favor? There's a lot of words there, so you can pick and choose on that and make it happen. Moving on. Elaine?
Okay, Casino Rama dollars. People are calling and wanting to know, when will we know if we're gonna get assistance with funds for health, especially health related? Some people are waiting for medicals, for things that aren't covered, and dental work. So they're going, when are we gonna know anything? Like, and I said, I can ask the question and see how long it would be before you're gonna hear something.
Who's all on the committee? And I know you didn't, who's all on the committee? It's 3, there was like 4 or 5. Wasn't there 4 or 5?
Well, the simple answer to that is that this is not an overnight process, I guess, in terms of developing a whole new program. And if we continue on the way we were spending, then there is no policy or no set policy, I guess, in terms of how the recommendations and applications are vetted for final decision making. And that we have to put in place some structured criteria that makes rhyme and reason for the expenditures of those funds. And it's a lot like creating a program. And I think that's what's necessary here, that the implementation of the Casino Rama program in the past has been very unstructured and very inconsistent in its decision making. And there hasn't been any identified spending priorities. And most importantly of all, I guess, the challenge for this council is that we're letting Health Canada, Indian Affairs, and everybody else, the provincial authorities off the hook by digging into those funds to bail out the implementation and top up on those programs. We have to get away from that. And I know it's probably not something that everybody wants to hear, but that's the plain truth of it, is that we have to pick up our bootstraps and start challenging government to resource us properly. That's the challenge that we have. Otherwise, we just start digging into our rainy day fund and our emergency fund for our members.
Here, here.
Having said all that, then little NHL has not been used, the funding hasn't been used for 2 years, and that's usually 4,500 approximately. So that is money that you saved for 2 years, and then members are saying like, what about that? And this was, we put this in before March 2021, so that's a fiscal year. So why don't they make their new policies for the new fiscal year that's coming up? And I said, I can ask the question.
I think that's a good case in point. I heard that there may be some improper checks drawn and perhaps received in terms of Little NHL coming from Casino Rama. So I think that is perhaps worth a second hard look in terms of how those monies were utilized. If checks were cut, if this is in fact true, and it results that an inquiry results in that, yeah, checks were released and there was no NHL, then there's some fault here somewhere.
I don't know of anyone that got a check.
No, I think they were held up.
Yeah, they didn't release the ones that last year, and there wasn't anything for this year.
It's worth an inquiry though, what do you say?
Is that what you mean with the 4,000?
Yeah, the ones, you know how they, individuals got checks?
Did some people get them?
I don't think so.
I think that's what you're
I
saying,
think we
right?
should clarify
That
that.
some people did get them?
Oh.
They may have. I think there should be an inquiry.
Because I know that Little NHL, or it covered registrations. Is that what you mean, the check, like that money?
I don't know what the chief's talking about. I was just talking about the money that people get. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
so
that's-
as far as I know, nobody received a check for the Little NHL last year, and there was nothing this year.
But it's easy for finance to look and inquire, it's not.
Yeah. That's all I'm suggesting there. We're asking questions we can't answer here. We're guessing. Marcia?
I can sympathize with the families or the requests for health-related, maybe emergent type situations. But I agree when Chief, you say that we're letting off all these other funding sources off the hook. It was so easy for people to go to Casino Rama and get their check right then and there. But if there's an issue with, especially Health Canada, not covering the cost of First Nations for legitimate expenses, we need a person or someone identified who is a little pit bull and could go to those that Health Canada and say, why are you not covering this for this person? Somebody to be an advocate for these families, for dental, for vision, for whatever their needs are. And if it's legitimate that there isn't that funding there, then we'll deal with it.
I think the first step in that direction though is to have a proper needs assessment from our health program on the overall health, I guess, of our community. And what is our actual financial resource requirements for dental care, eye care, all the way down the line, to identify whatever that gap is, and that's the gap that we have to go out and lobby for. So if we're going to mount a proper attack on government, then we have to have the proper ammunition and numbers and rationale to justify our cause.
Well, A lot of that information is online, like if you have the time to research it. What I'm saying is, when you question, when somebody, you get somebody on the other end of the phone saying, no, 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 no. And I say, no, excuse me, this person's entitled to this, and be that advocate for the family that can't go through all the computer stuff and read all the reports. That's what I'm saying is missing. And we really need to think about how we're gonna help, especially our elders, who, a lot of them are computer literate. I'm not totally computer literate, but I can do research.
And we have our experts in the field now that are there, that have paid positions to provide that information for us. All we have to do is ask for it. And I guess it would be called a lobbying package. So, it's instruction to administration to provide the necessary information. Where are the shortfalls? I know that we used to do a similar exercise to try and identify that, those gaps before, and it was called A and B budgeting. You get your actual amounts that you're expecting to receive from government, that's your A budget. But you also have a B budget that identifies what is it that you need in total to really provide the needs and wants of your community, whether it's in education, health, etc. And we don't do that anymore. We should be back to identifying what are those financial resources to actually resource this community on a proper basis to address the needs of our community, whether it's the children or the seniors.
That's why I asked of James, I guess it's A budget and B budget, to take all the band funds and the casino-rama out of the budget, so we can see where the actual gaps are.
So we've done that, and I think what we'll do is we'll present it to the next Administrative Operations Committee.
When will that be?
There's a meeting.
June 9th, isn't it?
June 9th.
That's my first meeting.
Thank you again.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
So when is the policy gonna be ready then?
That's an ad question.
June 9th.
June 9th.
Soon.
I'll tell them soon.
Who was delegated the responsibility to come up with the draft policy? Arlene or somebody in staff?
Was it, I think it was a task force.
Task force plus Lucille?
It was unclear whether you wanted just Lucille to take a stab at it or leave it with the task force, so that's kind of hanging there, so, it's not a, I think it's a collaborative thing, so she doesn't want to do policy, she's done many policies, so I think the task force has to really, we have to dig in and, work with the staff on how to do that. I haven't been able to secure a sample, I guess, from the Independent First Nations. Steve Williams was just referred me to what's on file already in terms of the initial RAMA agreement. So we haven't nailed that down yet. I haven't approached individual First Nations. Maybe that's something that the CEOs or Director of Operations, or maybe even one of them, we could get a sample policy that's adhering to the initial terms. That would be very helpful.
That motion?
Yeah, if you need a motion, James, I'll move that James and the appropriate staff, but James specifically, if you can find one of our member Independent First Nations that has a clear and functional casino-rama policy that we can use as a reference or as a template to draft our own, that'd be very helpful. I'll make that motion.
Second by Marcia. Question?
I agree with that. I think we have to find something that has a per capita basis too, because we have kind of a large per cap. So to deal with the ongoing long-term needs of how long should that money last that we have in the tank? Because that seems to be the long question of, if it dries up tomorrow, how much do we have in the tank for a while, right? And how much do we spend in each area, like you had education, clothing, health, and all of those, but then you have different age groups and so on. So I think it needs to be kind of divided up on those things. Just
I
think
guess the only ones that come to mind, I guess, of similar size would be Aquasasning, Wainaga, and maybe Nipissing, I guess, or one of the larger bands on Manitoulin.
I think most of the independents are fairly large. You have KI and, but there's some good
Just so you get some baseline, that's all.
I guess the only question I have is that there was a lot of work done previously already with the policy development and to shape it into a program. My question is, why are we wanting to go through the process of reinventing the wheel here? The initial policy that we had developed was quite sound in terms of providing a structured format and program for the delivery of the animal funding. And we adhere to all the delivery elements.
Which doesn't appear to have been followed. Correct?
What?
It's not been followed.
No, it was totally ignored.
Right.
Question. Has the committee or the task force looked at that policy?
We haven't now.
Looked at the,
All right, well, I'm just figuring this out because I didn't know if it was brought forward. I thought you guys scrapped it.
Oh, we don't have anything, we're just
Okay.
getting organized.
I'm just thinking that we're making the task a lot harder than it should be this fall. I think some councilors would agree with me. No.
Yeah.
Yep, and we open it up to discussion, question.
Call question.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Hold on.
I would suggest, if you want me to bring a solution to the table so we can keep moving forward, one would be to look at a model from other similarly sized organizations. The other would be for me to just prepare a briefing with staff on whether we can implement the policy as is. That would be more of an administrative task. Look at, and this, maybe things have changed and something needs to be adjusted, or can we implement it now? I think it's safe to say the other policy wasn't implemented. So we could do that as an alternative.
I'll add that to the motion.
I'll second that.
Coming back.
Addendum to.
So, James, we need to get moving on this, and our next meeting is not until the 9th. Can we have one sooner? This is Bree and I.
It's going to be difficult.
It's going to be difficult.
I'm here tomorrow. We don't have that meeting tomorrow now.
Well, that won't give me time to do it.
You can let Bree and I know that what your available dates
Okay.
are.
I'll see if we can do something next week. I can get it ready.
Okay.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor there to, I forgot what it was.
Look at an existing policy as reference from a appropriate independent First Nation. And the second point was that James was going to collaborate with the staff to see if we can make the existing, the appropriate policy that we have in place workable for everyone. So there's two drafts, but we want the council draft, right? You're going to just basically morph that into a working policy. So that's my understanding.
there were two different drafts, and they were drafts.
I don't think that's the difficulty. The difficulty was that we had worked on a policy and it was modified by the existing then financial controller, and that was presented to council as the draft that was coming from the committee. When in fact, it was not. It was a deception, I guess. And that started controversy then, because it's in, why is council being misled? There's a lot more to the story there. Okay, it's been moved and second. All in favor of the motion? Whatever it is.
Thank you.
Carried.
Big
It's
wedge.
carried.
Big wedge.
Good luck with it.
Who was the seconder?
Pardon me? Marcia was.
And who was the mover? I just got Marcia.
Burton.
Me what?
Pay attention.
We could go in camera now?
Okay, on camera.
Do you want to send the staff home since?